Today I'm going to be demonstrating the toe-up cast-on that is commonly known as Judy's magic cast-on because it was invented by a lady called Judy Becker. And there are various methods that I've seen around, even though it's supposed to be the same cast-on. I have seen it with a few differences about where the working yarn comes from, where the tail comes from and so forth. The method I'm going to show you is what is described in this book here, Socks from the Toe Up, Essential Techniques and Patterns from Wendy Knits by Wendy D. Johnson. She also has a blog, and Judy Becker kindly allowed her to print Judy's Magic Cast-On instructions in this book. So I'm going to be showing you the way Wendy says to do it, which when I tried it first off made complete perfect sense and worked the first time. So I think it's obviously nothing wrong with it. So that's what I'm going to do. Now you do need to leave a little bit of a tail of your yarn. For a cast on of 16 stitches, say 8 stitches on each needle, you need about 12 inches. So I'm just going to do about 12 on each today just to show you. So I'm just allowing a little bit more. So I have a long circular needle here. You can also do this cast on with 2 circular needles, and you can also do it with double point needles, but that will be covered in a separate video because the cast on method is the same, but when you go to knit the stitches that you've cast on, it's a bit more difficult with double point needles. So this is for 1 circular or 2 circulars. So you have the tips of your needles facing to the left. You have your yarn tail also out to the left. You put the yarn in between the 2 tips and let the tail dangle at the back. So the working yarn is coming out from in between the tips down to the front. Alright, I'm just using my right finger to sort of hold the yarn there. And if you're familiar with the long tail cast on, this will feel quite similar to you. You put the tail over your index finger and the working yarn over your thumb, and then you gather the rest of the yarn down with your hand down underneath. And now what we're going to do is alternate our index finger and our thumb to put our stitches on the needle. Now that loop that's on the top tip at the moment does count as the first stitch. So the next stitch we're going to make is on the bottom tip because of course we're going to have the same number of stitches on the top and the bottom. So to make the first stitch on the bottom, I'm going to use the yarn on my index finger. I'm going to bring it underneath the bottom needle and into the middle. Okay, now we have 1 on each one. Now I'm going to use the thumb to put the next stitch on the top needle. And if you just remember this pattern, the index finger always puts the stitch onto the bottom tip and the thumb always puts the stitch onto the top. So you're going to be alternating like this. Okay, so for our next stitch, we use the thumb to bring the yarn in between and around the top needle. Index finger around the bottom into the middle. Thumb in the middle and over. Index finger under and in the middle. Okay, slide those stitches along a little bit. So I've got 4 and 4. Should I tell a lie to you? In Wendy's book, when she tells you to do the stitches on the top tip with your thumb, the way she describes it is actually to go outside and then in like that. But what that actually results in is that when you do your first round and actually knit these stitches on the top tip, you have to knit them through the back loop because they're twisted. So I did find another version somewhere on the internet that used the stitch from in the middle and over, and that results in the stitches being the right way around, which I liked, so I decided to use that method. Okay, so 2, 4, 6, 8, 2, 4, 6, 7, 8 on each one, 9, 9, 10, 10. Okay, so we now have 10 stitches on each needle. Now it's time to knit them. We turn the stitches around. Now what we're going to do is, there's our tail and here's our working yarn. we're going to pull that tip out and let those stitches rest on the cable. And this is why this method is much easier using either 1 or 2 circular needles, because now that these stitches are on the cable, it just frees up a bit of movement, so it's much easier to knit these stitches on the tip. If you've got both of these on hard double point needles, the knitting of this first round can be quite difficult. Alright, so we're going to use the tip that we just released to our first stitch. Now, because this first stitch is essentially the tail, you have to make sure that you hold the tail tightly and bring the other working yarn up and crisscross it around the tail. Otherwise the first stitch will just drop off the needle and this looks awkward, but once you get going it's fine. Alright, so there's the first stitch. Don't worry about it being a little bit loose because you can just pull on the tail later. So basically I'm just going to knit across all of these stitches that were on the tip. And see now, yes, that first stitch is a little bit loose, but when I just tug on the tail it comes up nice and tight. Okay, finish knitting the stitches. It might take you a couple of goes to get the tension right on these stitches, so don't be disheartened if it doesn't work first time. Alright, I've knit those stitches, now I need to go and knit these ones. So what we do is we turn it around again, so we're facing the right way. We pull those stitches up onto the tip and then we pull the other tip out so that we're ready to knit these stitches. Okay, first one's a little bit tight. It's nice using these big needles. If you're using this cast on for socks, which you no doubt are, it's going to be a lot smaller, but this is probably good to have it practice on big needles anyway. Okay, so now you're basically ready to resume knitting, for example, the toe of your sock, and you would just use the exact same technique, pull the next lot of stitches up onto the tip, slide that tip out, and you're ready to begin knitting. But what you can see now is that you essentially have an unbroken line of what looks like stocking stitch there. You cannot even see the cast on, and to me that looks even neater than using the Kitchener graft if you've knit a sock from the top down. So I just absolutely love this cast on, and now I'm ready to knit to do my first increase round, and now I'll just alternate a round of increasing and then just a round of knitting until I get to the right circumference for my sock and keep going. But have a go at that, it's really fantastic, and good luck.